It's going, it's going.
Earlier is go to more and then go to live on custom.
It's
live
going.
Something, I forgot what it's called.
Okay, I think
So
that's
now
it.
Let me just double check.
I
on
think
our
we're in.
Facebook Page.
All right.
Is it working, Elise?
I haven't heard from Paul. Paul, is it working? Are you still there? He logged
I don't
off.
see anything, nothing. Oh, it says live.
Yes.
You're live. You're good to go.
Okay, let's go. Oh, all right. Good evening, everybody. And apologies to everyone here and anybody who's been trying to get in online. Hopefully, you can see it where you are. So I want to welcome everybody. And I'm just going to close my door because it can be quite noisy. Okay. Here we go. My name is Lise Vaugeois, and I'm the MPP for Thunder Bay Superior North, and I'm also the official opposition critic for seniors and people living with disabilities. And I'm your host for this evening. We have 7 or 8 speakers for tonight. MPP Wayne Gates from Niagara Falls, Fort Erie, and Niagara-on-the-Lake. He is the critic for long-term care, retirement homes, and home care. MPP Chris Glover, who is the MPP for Spadina, Fort York, critic, Democratic Reform and Technology, Development and Innovation. Maria Sardellis, who is the founder of Access to Seniors and Disabled. Marta Hayek, CEO of Elder Abuse Prevention Ontario. And then we have family members from Heritage Glen who will have their own stories to tell us. I believe we've got Stacy Saracini, Sinead Hutchinson, and Jeff Fernandez here. So we will, we also, I hope we have many people listening on Zoom, Facebook, or YouTube, and we may at some point have media attending. So you should be aware that anything that's said here could be potentially on the public record. And if we do have media popping in at some point, please identify yourselves. We will also take questions throughout. So we've got people in the background trying to track whether people are posting to chat questions. So there are going to be 3 sections to, oh, but I just got a message that one of the people who couldn't get in is now in. So that's good. We've got 3 sections. We're going to, each presenter has got about 3 minutes to share their perspectives on the crises that are happening right now in seniors housing and seniors care. In the second section, we want to be focusing on solutions, some short-term solutions for things that are happening right now, and then longer-term solutions. And then finally, we'll have presenters will have a chance to briefly sum up, have some concluding remarks. But before we go any further, I would like to offer a land acknowledgement for the place we know of today as Ontario. There are, in fact, 46 treaties and other agreements that cover the province, and it's well worth taking the time to know what treaties affect where each of us lives. We are thankful to the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people who have cared for these territories since time immemorial, and who approach the newcomers with a willingness to share the land and share their knowledge of how to live on this land. Today, we offer our acknowledgements as marks of our commitment to leave colonial relationships behind and do the work of building just relations with each other. Tonight, our focus is on seniors housing. Short term, we are looking for solutions to address the immediate crises that people are experiencing right now, with evictions from a seniors residence in Mississauga, the 6 long-term care homes that are being sold out from under residents. There are continuous rent evictions taking place, rent hikes, and the transfer of affordable housing stock to short-term Airbnb rental markets. These crises demonstrate a fundamentally flawed approach to housing in general, and more specifically, housing and care for seniors. It's a market-based system, which is always ultimately about generating profits, with the well-being of people quite far down the list of what matters. Looking beyond the immediate crises, there are actually really positive and creative options if we have a government willing to invest in people and communities rather than shareholder profits. So I'm going to pass the microphone, as it were, to Wayne Gates next. And if you could take roughly 3 minutes, Wayne.
They told me I had a half an hour. We mean just 3 minutes. That's that wasn't correct there, Lise, or what? I
No,
want to say hi to Chris. I saw Chris's come on. How you doing? It's good to see. We haven't seen each other now for what, just over 2 months, and the good news is we don't see each other now till October 21st. So that gives us lots of time to run town hall meetings and stuff. But anyways, I'm Wayne Gates. You have already said that I'm a provincial member for Niagara Falls, Fort Erie, and Niagara Lake. I am the official critic for long-term care, home care, and retirement homes in the province. But I want to say that we are still facing an incredible crisis when it comes to long-term care, home care, and retirement home systems. Today, as we sit here doing the town hall, we still have 43,000. Think about that, 43,000 waiting in long-term care on that list. It's absolutely incredible as we see some of our discussion today, and I'm sure Chris and Lise, you'll talk about it, as we see Chartwell closing down retirement homes and throwing seniors, quite frankly, in some cases, maybe to the streets. And we have to talk about, okay, where are we going to be? Because you're trying to look at solutions. The reality is that in the next, I think it is 20 years, we're going to have double the population of seniors that live in the province of Ontario. That is a staggering number when you look at it, including probably me and Chris. I'm just guessing. I don't know Chris's age, but I'm thinking, I think Lise, you may be a little younger than us, but
no.
yeah. Well, your hair makes you look younger, Lise. So that's kind of what's going on. But the issue that I discussed a lot, and I got the full support from my colleagues, which I really appreciated, is that today we have 3.3 million caregivers that are taking care of our moms, our dads, our aunts, our uncles. And we brought forward what we thought was a very good solution to that they get a direct payment. Not only did the NDP support it and all my colleagues, which I appreciated, but the Liberals also, not only did they support it, they actually came to the press conference, and so did the Greens. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the Ford government to vote to it, even though we know Nova Scotia has it already. We know that Manitoba is looking at it, and we also know that in the budget of the Liberals, they put some language in their budget. We know it's something that we need. If you're looking for a solution, we know our caregivers are suffering financially. Some are losing their jobs. So I think one of the things that we have to do is convince the Ford government that this is the right thing to do and continue to put pressure on them. I will talk because you only gave me 3 minutes and not a half hour. I got 47 pages here, but I won't be able to use them all. So I'll try and hit on a couple points that are important as we go through this. We need to take the profit out of long-term care, home care, and retirement homes. That's the thing that's really, really probably the number one issue. And the reason why I say that is we knew we had problems in long-term care long before I became the critic. But it was hidden for years. But what COVID did, it brought it out. It brought out exactly what our seniors were facing when they went into long-term care, retirement homes. Obviously, we all want our parents to stay at home. Sometimes that's a whole different issue on why. But COVID brought it out. And what we saw in the for-profit homes, we had close to 6,000. Hi there. I don't know who you are, but I'll just wave to you. We had close to 6,000 of our moms or dads, young uncles died during COVID. Most of them were preventable. But the number that jumped out at us is 78% of those seniors died in for-profit homes. So that meant 78% of those homes, because you know why they died there? Because they didn't care about their care. They cared about making money, which meant that they didn't put proper PPE. They didn't have proper staffing. Quite frankly, we're not even sure if they were given the proper pills or any of that stuff. We saw at Otreville where we had to call the military in, where it was so disgusting that some people were laid in their bed for 2 days after they were dead. There was cockroaches, there was spoiled food, there was rats. That's the type of thing that was happening in long-term care, but particular in for private homes. We know that if you want to fix long-term care, it's got to go back to a publicly funded, publicly delivered, and make all the money that's going to long-term care retirements has to go to care and not profit. So I think that's one of the biggest issues. I can get into some of the other stuff, but I don't want to take up all the time. But I just want to say that I'll have more to say as we go through this, but I think there are the big issues. And I just want to say is COVID is not gone. I got notified just yesterday that we have outbreaks right here in Niagara with COVID. We just saw the President of the United States have COVID. It took him down for a week, I think, just over a week. He was taken down with COVID. So we still have to fight that too going forward. So thanks for giving me a couple minutes to say a few words. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Wayne. Chris Glover, if you would take the reins.
Okay, thanks so much. And first of all, I want to thank, Lise and Wayne for their leadership in fighting to protect seniors, both in seniors' homes and seniors in long-term care homes in this province. This Heritage Glen issue has been really, really appalling and really an eye-opener for the community. I think it's the first big news story since the pandemic that just shows how bad the care is in long-term care homes. Like Chartwell, and I know many of you already know this, but Chartwell received money from the Harris government to build new for-profit long-term care homes. And then immediately after he was the premier, Harris became the chair of Chartwell, and he's made at least $7 million that's been reported in dividends from that position. So they shoveled all kinds of money into this private for-profit long-term care system. And then he takes some of it back. And as Wayne was pointing out, there was that horrific report from the armed forces about the terrible, terrible care and the suffering and the deaths that people in long-term care, for-profit long-term care homes suffered. But it's not just that. The Chartwell has received $65 million in taxpayer subsidy since 2006. So in the last 18 years. And they've taken that money and upgraded these seniors' homes and these long-term care homes, and then they're selling off the homes at a profit. So our tax dollars went into some of the renovations and the improvements into those seniors' homes, and then they sell them off at a profit, having profited from our tax dollars. And in the meantime, rent-evicting the seniors who they're supposed to be caring for. And it's because Chartwell and these other long-term care homes, they're not incorporated as care homes or hospitals, or they're incorporated as real estate investment trusts. Their bottom line is to make as much money from the real estate as possible. And if that means that they have to evict a 103-year-old, and like they did in Heritage Glen, or if they have to tell a senior, and it was a woman in her 80s, that her best option may be to move to a shelter, then that's what they do. So as Wayne said, profit has to get out of these seniors' homes, out of these long-term care homes, because they're literally sacrificing our seniors to generate more profit. And so we know the solution. We've got to get back to a public, not-for-profit system that actually prioritizes the care for our seniors and the care for people in long-term care. So, I'm glad we're having this town hall. I know that the eviction date, July 31st, is coming up. And it's been a date that people have been dreading for a long time. So it's nice to gather together again with some of those of you just to talk about what's been happening. And I'm looking forward to hearing your presentations.
Thank you very much, Chris. I think we will go to the folks from Heritage Glen, and welcome, Karen. I'm glad you're able to get in. I don't really have the order is fairly arbitrary, but Stacy, would you like to begin?
I think we were going to throw it to Karen first.
Okay.
So Karen,
great.
are you good with that? Just need to come off mute there.
Hi, everyone. This is pretty cool to do. My mom is 92. And she was evicted from Chartwell. She had been there for 20 years. Couldn't believe it was happening and couldn't believe the company that we entrusted her to would do this. So, we started going to the meetings, we started doing protests, and then we met Sinead, I met Jeff, and we met Stacy, and we decided our voices were better together because we can be pretty tough and we're pretty persistent. So, we're just learning about long-term care and for-profit care. And the more I learn, the more disgusted I am. We hope that we can do something a little bit, just a little something. And to get our MPPs involved, which are non-existent. So, any help we can give anyone or any ideas for us to do would be great, because that's what we're kind of needing. We're just trying to keep it going right now, keep it in the news, and that's our main goal, but not quite sure what to do. So any help is appreciated.
Uh,
And that's it.
thank you, Karen. And I think Stacy, you might be next up.
Yes. And first off, I do want to thank you, Lise, Wayne, and Chris. If it weren't for you, I don't feel that our voices would be anywhere. And as Karen alluded to, we just kind of came together as family members who were concerned and what we could do, and more voices are better than one, but we were still kind of drowning, not understanding where to go or what to do. And I do just want to thank Lise and Wayne and Chris, because you took up our plight. You took our voices forward, and it really means a lot to have that feeling of support behind us. My mother-in-law, that's was in Heritage Glen, and she'd only been there since 2021, but she knew the building and she knew the area, and she was I can't, I mean, just so devastated and shocked, um, because she really trusts in the government. That was her generation. She grew up believing, trusting, feeling that they were the ones that were going to lead the way and take them to the right place. And she just felt so belittled and kind of cast aside, that the government would just kind of not want to get involved, not want to look at her and see that she matters after everything that she did, raising her family, having property, and paying her taxes and paying her bills and doing all the things that you're supposed to do. So she really just was heartbroken. Um, and she really is very distrustful. She's not sure, what she should do, who she should trust. We have moved her into a new facility. I have to say, they have been pretty absolutely amazing. Holland Christian Home, a lovely community, but it's not her community. And we were there today, at her new home, and it's her birthday. It's her 82nd birthday. So we went to celebrate with her, have lunch, brought her flowers, and my daughter came, her granddaughter and her boyfriend. So we just kind of sat and had a nice afternoon together. But you know, there's just a sadness about her. It's just a sadness. And she keeps saying, it's really great. It's a lovely apartment, but it's not my home. It's not the people that I, was next door neighbor to. I don't know any of the staff. It's just different. And it's just a sadness. And, that really kind of breaks my heart. And I do think of all of us in the future. We're not that far away from being in that place where we'll need to have some help and have a great community. And I'm just looking for change. I know there's nothing we can do right now, but I know that there's something collectively we can do together, to insist that there's change. There's a lot of other countries that do a heck of a lot better job than we do in caring for our seniors, in making them feel valued. They really respect them. Um, I was reading some things online today, and they really talked about celebrating senior citizens. And I loved that, celebrating them for all that they've done, as opposed to casting them aside. So I'm thankful that anyone who is here. I'm thankful again to Lise and Wayne and Chris, and my committee members. You guys are awesome, and I know that we can make a difference. So thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Jeff,
Hi, can you hear me?
yes.
All right. Thank you, everybody. So first and foremost, well, thank you everybody for putting this together. Chris, Wayne, you guys have been awesome during this whole transition. I had a speech. I prepared it, and I basically threw it out because I want to basically speak from my heart. Because you know what, that's just the way I feel. So, middle of March, my dad called me. My father-in-law called me and says, "Hey, I received a letter that I'm getting kicked out." Naturally, he has dementia. I thought nothing out of it. I basically went in one ear, went out the other. A couple of days later, he repeated it again. Then I said, "This can't be true." Then I went there. Then I said, "Wow." I said, "Oh my God, I can't believe that they would actually do this." And yeah, so then I basically prolonged it. Then during the journey, I received, and I don't know how, but somehow I met Stacy, Karen, Shanae, and some other wonderful people at Chartwell. We formed a committee. Don't know. I guess things just happened. And yeah. So and I know June, I received threatening voicemails from Chartwell, the transition group, that basically says I need to get him out. I'm the only person. I'm one of two people that have yet to find a home for him. And basically, it was me and some other person who apparently was on their last lives. And I knew I could move him, but then I thought to myself, well, why don't I just wait? Why don't I just wait? Then the third week, my father-in-law came to me and says, "This is too much pressure. I got to get him out." So finally, I had no choice. The last week of June, I moved him out to a place that was about 5 minutes from Chartwell. I had no choice. This is I had no choice. The stocks were, everything was against me. So I moved him out, and that was a crisis as it was. Then he was there 7 days, and unfortunately, God took his soul. And yeah, and so yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I have no more words to say. But you know what? All I know is, I've left numerous voicemails through Nina, her team, and pretty much she don't give a shit. Sorry, am I allowed to say that? But yeah, I don't know, and my hands are tied. I know Karen, Stacy, Sinead, we've done everything in our power. We hope a lawyer can help. I don't know what else to do. Yeah, I guess my dad's gone. He's lost. But obviously I gotta think about everybody else. So hopefully with the help of your support from everybody here, everybody somewhere, somebody picks up and then helps us through. Sorry. Hopefully I wasn't repeating myself, but that's right from the heart. And if I was over 3 minutes, I apologize, but yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm really sorry to hear about your dad.
Thanks.
Sinead.
Oh boy, hopefully you guys can hear me. Yes? Well, I have a lot to say, I guess. First of all, I agree with everything that everybody has said so far. We really do appreciate all of the efforts from everybody involved. It was really disheartening to have very little to no interaction with our local MPPs, people from the area. Some of the city councilors were really good in trying to help get some attention and trying to help us with some negotiations, but the MPPs were not around. And, it really left a bad taste in my mouth. Just because, we're from this community, we've grown up and lived in this community. These are our parents that have provided and paid taxes for this community. and the majority of them have had to leave. We're in an economic crisis from housing. And, you're talking about people that have lived in a building for, like Karen and, some of the other people here, but like my parents have been in the building for 24 years at a rent of $1,600. I do mortgages for a living, and you're not finding anything for $1,600 in the immediate area at all. I made it a little difficult for Chartwell purposely. My parents were still in the building. My father passed away on Thursday. He was stage 4. I can tell you that everything that has gone on from a stress perspective with Chartwell has not helped the situation at all. The day that my parents received the notice from Chartwell was the day that my brother, 53 years old, was also passing away from cancer. So 2024 for us has been absolutely horrific. My mom right now is still in the building because my father was in our care up until the end. I have also been residing at Chartwell for the past 3 weeks. And I can tell you some of the stuff that I'm seeing, it leaves me speechless. I have brought it to their attention. We have got units on the first floor that have been kicked in from the back. So people have access potentially to get into the building. When you're talking about only having 2 or 3 families, I mean, I'm much younger than my mother, and I'll tell you, it is very unsettling for me. Sometimes I get some of, my older boys to come over because I just don't feel safe.
Mhm.
We've also got, Chartwell, I guess, has decided what belongings in the properties that they want to keep, and it's all been itemized. Some of it they've been generous to donate and hand out to family members and staff, which is totally fine. But you're talking about, and I've shared this with Karen, Stacy, and Jeff. I'm in the building at 11 o'clock at night. We've got cars pulling up. We've got PSWs unlocking the front door, letting family members come into the building. They're locking the doors behind them. They're taking things out all the way up until 2 o'clock in the morning. And I can tell you, it is really unsettling. Like in my mind now, I'm like, how would I ever have left both of my parents here alone? Like,
Mhm.
there's absolutely no way that I would feel safe. I don't feel safe leaving her there at any time. And I have, since my father has passed away, taken her out a few times with me to just, come, let's go spend the night at, a grandchild's house or something, just to kind of give her a little bit of peace. But it is really unsettling. And, I think about it as well that, these people lived in the building where there was no grass, there was no lawn care, the grounds were not in great shape. And we've posted video after video of me watching them install, sprinkler systems and brand new sod being laid and landscapers coming in 4 times a week. Like, I'm absolutely appalled. And I think the objective, really, we would have loved to have had something stop for Heritage Glen. And when we realized that that was not an option, our motive became, this can never happen again to any long-term care facility, retirement home. The amount of stress, the amount of deaths, it is unimaginable what we've endured. There's 94-year-old ladies in the building that, their sons have called me and said, like, I can't make it into the neighborhood. I'm here, come around, give me their unit number. I'll go down and sit and talk to them, and have this woman open the door and absolutely burst into tears with loneliness and fright and not know who to talk to. And it's just appalling. Like, I'm upset with the government, to be honest. I'm really upset that they have not stepped up to the plate to do something. And, I think this really needs to change. And I think we're here collectively as a team to make that happen, whatever it looks like. My parents right now, or my mom, is in the building until August 15th. I have negotiated with Chartwell. I did purchase a property that I had originally bought for a rental, to rent it out. It is in Paris, Ontario, so it's quite far. But I have, convinced my mom that maybe this would be a good option for her. to go that route and like, have us kind of just move in with her so that she's not by herself. It frightens me to leave her by herself. She's 82. She's lived with my father for 55 years. It's a big change. And I have gone to Chartwell, and the only thing positive that I will say, and I don't think it was because they were overly trying to be kind. I think it's because they knew that if they didn't at least do this bare minimum for me, we would not leave the building, and they would have a much bigger problem on their hands. So they have agreed to at least pay that additional cost to move my mom to Paris, Ontario, which is about 30 kilometers over the maximum, and no additional cost to her. But to me, either way, something has to change. Something seriously has to change. Thank you.
Thank you, Sinead. Before we go to Maria and Marta, I know that amongst ourselves in the caucus, we've talked about, is it possible to make it illegal to sell out these homes from underneath seniors? Certainly there needs to be something to stop this from happening. Part of what Chris talked about is the fact that these, Chartwell is a real estate trust. So they're in the business of buying and selling real estate in order to make a profit. So, I thought then it's been bought out by Minto. So presumably Minto is the one that's putting in the new sod and the sprinklers and so on. And once they have the building, there will be no rent controls on it at all. So they can charge whatever they want. Was there a way to intervene and stop the sale from happening in the first place? There is nothing right now, but I think it's something that we have to look at and see if there is some way to block that from happening. Another possibility is that the first right of refusal should go to municipalities. Now, if they did that, though, Chartwell wouldn't make nearly as much money, is my guess, as they're making from Minto. But that offer, I think, still needs to be made. There was just appalling to think that you could simply kick somebody out after 20 years or 25 years, and somebody who has had the benefit of rent control and organized their life according to their known expenses, and then suddenly be facing double, triple, quadruple rent in probably a much smaller space and go through that entire upheaval. It's really, really hard to fathom that it's allowable, but it is because these corporations are real estate trusts. They don't exist to provide services. They provide services in order to develop their properties and eventually sell them. I also wondered about whether Heritage Glen should have grandfathered in some of the people into Heritage Glen. And I think that I guess I put that out online a number of times. I believe I also raised that in the House. But I agree, it's been appalling that the local MPPs have refused to be involved. And we know that Nina Sitangi, I got her name, I can't get her name right, but that she's made these public statements about how she was there to help and she's done everything she could and she's worked with the families and she's worked with the municipality, and none of it's true. So it's disgusting on both levels, right? That she's lying about it and that there was no help. She did nothing. And I think that at the very least to have sat down with people and listened and been genuine about trying to problem solve, could have at least made a difference on a psychological level, on an emotional level for people who are being put through so much torment. Now, I don't know if anybody, Wayne or Chris, if you want to step in here, or if I should move on to Marta and Maria at this point.
I'm good. I'd like to hear from Marta and Maria.
Okay, great. I think I've got Maria up first.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And again, sincere condolences to all of you that have reported that you have lost a loved one. I too lost my mother in April, and it is not easy to lose family members. Now, tonight I understand that we're talking about what's going on with this lodge and basically with the eviction. My advocacy group, Access to Seniors and Disabled, we advocate for the enforcement of all the existing legislations, and there are many, which protect our seniors living in long-term care, retirement homes, and group homes, our vulnerable people, in essence. However, we can't get enforcement of them. And one of the good acts that we really need enforced is the Trespass to Property Act, because pre-pandemic, there were advocates advocating and exposing the neglect, the abuse, and the negligence that our military did. But our military is exempt from trespass or from any repercussions for having brought out what they did. Our advocates are not. We get sued, we get trespassed, there's all kinds of retaliation. Post-pandemic, I still have a slew of cases coming to me where people are still reporting abuse and negligence, be it in group homes, long-term care, or retirement homes. And these people are issued trespass notices, or the police are being called. The Trespass to Property Act, perfectly written act, no amendment, no special interpretation required. It literally says that the facility operators cannot issue a trespass. Only the physical occupier, person in physical possession. So in other words, your seniors or are vulnerable. They're the only ones because they're in physical possession of the property, according to our courts. Motion 129, Boulah's Law, it was all about begging the Ford government to enforce the well-written act as it is adjudicated. Ford has refused. So when we talk about creating laws and creating these preventions for things that are happening, to me, I'm looking at it and going, if we can't get really good laws preventing our seniors from something like trespass, which has severe consequences to these seniors, to their sense of safety, to their sense of fear, vulnerability, everything that you're describing your seniors are going through, I've got seniors going through it for 316 days, 322 days, 418 days, when their family, or in the worst scenarios, in my opinion, mothers from disabled children being denied access to their disabled children. These children have no voice. They're nonverbal. They need their mothers. And yet Ford's allowing all of this to happen. So how the heck are we going to try and make these homes accountable for what they're doing at Chartwell and everything when we can't get them to abide by laws that already exist to protect them? Now, the other thing I'm going to tie in with trespass, because we are talking about eviction, caregivers that have then said, stop, you can't use the Trespass to Property Act like this. It's unlawful, which it is. It's illegal, yes. What's happening to these mothers or these caregivers of these families? Their loved ones are being evicted. So in other words, you've been issued a trespass from your loved one because you happen to say there's negligence, there's food trays piling up, there's mosquitoes, flies buzzing around, their beds haven't been changed in how many or how long, they haven't been given water in 2 days, and you're being trespassed. You complain, your senior or your child gets evicted. I've got a case where they picked up the young man, brought him and dropped him off to the parents' home without notice. Without notice, nothing. And they dropped him off on a rural farm. The mother had already gone to work. The father happened to be home. There are these types of evictions without notice. Now, can they do it? Here again, this is what concerns me. There's a law that says they can't. The Residential Tenancy Act literally says you cannot evict without a 30-day notice, or sorry, without first giving notice to the landlord and tenant board and getting the approval of the board for the eviction. They're not following the law. We have a law that prevents it, and yet we can't even get that act. So I've got mothers evicted from children. I've got daughters, children evicted from their parents. And we've got laws protecting it, and we can't get them enforced. And we're trying. Lise Bourgeois has done an excellent job in supporting our advocacy work and trying to get the government to follow their own laws. We're not even asking for new laws. We're asking for the laws that are there protecting our seniors above, and we can't get them enforced. So when I'm hearing all this about, how do we hold them? We've got to get new laws. We're, got to put something in place. My head's going, but we can't get existing stuff to get in place. And then just one thing that ever since I heard about these evictions about Chartwell and some of the other ones, I couldn't help but see and notice that after, I guess many of you know that there has been a ratification of the class action lawsuits against Chartwell for the negligence and abuse that happened during COVID. Right after those ratifications, I could be just, putting two things together. That's when Chartwell and the others decided to get out of the business. And that's when they started evicting your seniors. Because now they're going to have to be held accountable, and they will be in court. Who knows what kind of fines they're going to pay. But if they can get out of the business, they might end up with some limited liability, which is pretty interesting way of dealing with such a case. That's all for me. And I'm sorry if I went over 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maria. And you make a very good point. We've been writing to all the related. Sorry, Chris, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. I actually was talking to a friend today who her cousin's husband had dementia and was discharged from the hospital without notice in the middle of winter with running shoes on and dropped off at the home. It's the first time that what you're telling me, I didn't realize this was so widespread. It seems, there's incredible negligence and endangerment. And so, as well as like you're talking about, breaching the Residential Tenancy Act, the Trespass Act, or not enforcing them as they're supposed to be, but those people have abused, if they're not acting, if they're evicting someone, without following the law, or if they're trespassing someone, but they don't have the legal right to do that, is that not a criminal act? And even if it's not a criminal act, the other question I have for you around the legal side of it, and just wondering if you've explored it, because certainly we can take this back and we can explore it, we can ask our research team to look into this, but would they not be liable for any damages in a civil?
Oh, do I have an answer for you? And the research is already done.
Yeah.
There are Charter 7, 9, Charter 24, and Charter 32 violations. Okay. I've got the research done. So you want to do a follow-up? Oh yeah, the government is actually in charge. Ford is actually, it all comes under charge of scrutiny, and he's actually breached the charter rights of these individuals and the Human Rights Code. Got that all done? Can definitely answer those questions in full if you like.
Ford, the premier, the government, the Conservative government has breached the charter rights.
Yes, because because these acts, especially the Trespass to Property Act, when we put motion 129 Willis Law forward, that motion begs, it's pathetic that we have to go to a government and beg for them to enforce a law. We're begging. And Ford said no. Now, the legislature, it was a nonpartisan agreement on, unanimously supported. So his legislature of the time gets a little bit of a get out of jail free card, but Ford does not. Under Section 32, he is a state actor, Section 32 of the Charter. And as state actors, they have to enforce the law. And under Section 24 of the Act, if they are not enforcing the laws that they're supposed to be, they are liable. So the government is liable, and so are police, but let's just keep that between us.
Right.
This is really interesting, and I don't want to, I'd like to take this conversation.
Yeah, we can do this some other time, because I'd really like to get back to what I was hearing from these other people, see if I can't figure out something here as they keep talking.
Thank you, Maria. And just before we go to Marta, we have written a long letters detailing every single legal angle, asking for the ministers to take responsibility for the laws that are being broken by agencies that they are funding. And they continue to argue that the agencies are independent, they've got their own board of directors, so basically it's not their responsibility, but of course it's their responsibility, and Maria has laid that out many, many times. We'll carry on from there, but up until this point, it's been 2 years. Maria and I've been working together on this for 2 years, and it's a brick wall every single time. Marta.
Okay, well.
Oh, I'm sorry, Marta, just one thing. I meant to note that Allison Hannaford is actually on the line, and she is a reporter who has taken an interest actually in the issue of the Trespass to Property Act. Sorry to interrupt you, Marta.
Thank you, and thank you for that flag. Thank you for the invitation to be part of this panel and this very important discussion. Thank you to each of you for sharing your stories and telling what your role is as an advocate for a loved one. For those of you that lost loved ones, it's not inconsequential that what your family members have experienced doesn't somehow tie into this issue of being evicted, to suddenly facing housing insecurity. The age group that we are talking about is very vulnerable. They've just lived through, I belong to that club. We've lived through COVID, and we saw what the impact was of lockdowns and of isolation, and how that affected people's not only physical well-being, but their mental well-being as well. It's not something that you flip a switch and suddenly everybody's better and we just forget about it. Our organization is really dedicated to preventing elder abuse. When COVID happened, we not only had our funding cut, we lost 3 staff members, but we also saw a rise in elder abuse cases. And what our partners across communities in Ontario have reported, it was a 250% increase. I don't mind telling you that one of the helplines that we deal with and work with actually reported that was closer to 800%. We know that roughly 8 to 10 people will experience some form of elder abuse. And we say we know because those are the ones that are reported. But there are so many barriers to reporting that number is significantly lower than what we know to be actually happening in a community. I'll also tell you that 93% of seniors live in community. And when COVID was happening, the amount of abuse that was happening behind closed doors was astounding. The individuals that are perpetrators of abuse are typically family members, caregivers. These are individuals that are expected to be in a relationship of trust, and yet that trust is breached. And you inject something like a financial gain to this, where a home or anyone else is collecting rent, you can just imagine what goes through those people's heads. We know that the issues around reporting, for example, also impact those numbers, but this is the fastest growing demographic in history right now. We have more people in Ontario over the age of 65 than we do under the age of 15. That has all kinds of ramifications because these are now shortfalls in terms of caregivers and people coming up in the ranks to support older populations. When you have a shortfall of resources, everybody gets tired. There's all kinds of emotional strain, financial constraints. Caregivers are having to do things out of pocket and not being able to earn sufficiently to be able to care for those family members or others in the community. So it's a vicious circle that's being created. And again, there is a lack of political will to step up and change this. With the number of individuals that we anticipate are going to be, as we said, doubling almost within the next decade, what is that going to look like? We advocate for prevention at all levels, and that is a whole of government approach. So regardless of who the ruling party is, this is a societal issue. Elder abuse happens because of ageism. Ageism is at the core of why this behavior is allowed to go unchecked. It is pervasive, it is insidious, and it is going to increasingly have very detrimental effects to society as a whole. We talk about seniors being a burden to the healthcare system or to the social justice system. They're not a burden. These are individuals that have spent their lives contributing to the well-being of society. They have built the country that we love and are so very proud of, the province as well. Do we not owe these older adults the quality of life that they deserve after a lifetime of service? It is not a homogenous group. And we know, for example, that elder abuse happens in not just one form, but there's usually a combination of things. And again, the prevalence of financial exploitation right now is right up there. And it's only getting worse because we have scammers and fraudsters that are working the system 24/7, trying to find a way in to scoop up the assets that an older adult has spent a lifetime accumulating. That too has an impact on being able to sustain your quality of life going forward. So if we're evicting individuals that were expecting a particular fee or rent to be paid per month, now releasing those individuals into a community where we know the rents are skyrocketing, they're unaffordable for working professionals, let alone a senior on a fixed income. And those numbers translate into roughly $500 to $1,500 increases. When you're on a pension or a fixed income, how is that even feasible or possible? So what happens next? And in the worst of scenarios, we're creating a greater population that is facing homelessness. And we already know what the impacts of that are to the healthcare system and, as we said, the justice system going forward. Again, we advocate for prevention. We need to look at things from a proactive lens now. There are things that can be done, and I'm not sure we're at this point in terms of solutions, but there have been programs that Canada has been a participant in, and particularly in Toronto, for example. It's a home share program, and the City of Toronto for some time funded this. A phenomenal success. So for those of you that perhaps are not aware of it, older adults tend to be real estate rich, but cash poor. Having a huge house, extra rooms, the offer was made, and these were vetted individuals that were at university level to say, okay, you can rent a room in my home, not for $2,300 a month, but maybe $800 a month. But in exchange, the individual would offer to help with groceries, with some chores around the house. We know full well for all the situations that we've been part of, and our organization worked very closely with Home Share. Those relationships went beyond just the years of education. These are now new families that have been created, and the older adult and the student, now graduated, chooses to remain in that home. So there are options rather than warehousing people in long-term care and retirement homes. There are ways of building communities that are more acceptable to what older adults want to experience in the last parts of their life. So age-friendly communities is only a title. It's a lovely acronym, but what does that really mean? And we're working again with a lot of municipalities across the province to make sure that elder abuse prevention is part of that priority and that policy for that community. If you don't know what the warning signs are, you don't know what to watch for, or even how to protect yourself. So we spend an inordinate amount of time, and we used to, prior to COVID, we would maybe interact with 5,000 people a year. The only blessing that came out of COVID is that we've moved into a virtual service delivery model, and now we're reaching over 40,000 a year. 40,000 lives in a year that we've touched. Similarly, when we did case consultations, we don't case manage, but we do case consultations. So we help older adults, their family, or caregivers who reach out to us navigating the system, what is available to them locally, when the older adult is at risk of abuse or experiencing it. And again, it's such a fragmented system across the province. It's not a one size fits all. You know, you drive up to Wingham and you can get a legal clinic and you can get a doctor, a dentist, and so forth. That's not necessarily the case. So we do a lot of information and referral pieces, but if the individual lives in Aurelia and the only person that we can refer them to for their particular instance is in Collingwood, the senior doesn't drive. There may be language issues. So there are all kinds of barriers that older adults face. So we are in fact advocating for a less fragmented system, but one that is a systemic response pathway that is equitable across the province. And it's not rocket science to achieve this. We already work within local communities. We have 43 elder abuse prevention networks. They are comprised of volunteers. These are not paid people. They do this off the side of their desk, belong to a committee, and they come together with increasing frequency and regularity is to talk about situations within their local community and how can we best help that older adult resolve their current challenge. So again, I probably could talk for hours and I don't have that much time. I would probably just say if there's any questions, I'm happy to address them. But first and foremost, the education comes for anybody within the legislature to understand what the landscape currently is.
Yeah. So we had, thank you, Marta. And we, more than once, and I had the opportunity to do this myself, to introduce a bill to have a seniors advocate, an independent a member of the assembly to help to build that system-wide, that overview, to bring all those people together, to recognize the intersection of all of those issues that are affecting older adults. Before we go any further, so Wayne, just let me introduce one person who's here. Paula Randazzo posted to the chat, and she is actually a union head for about 3,000 PSWs. And she was bargaining with people at Heritage Glen. And they were told, I can read this, they repeatedly told us they had no knowledge of the sale. Even after the environmental supervisor told the staff, they continued to deny it. They held the healthcare workers and the residents hostage for a year. A year they could have looked for a new home. A year they could have looked for alternative employment. And I'm just, yeah. They threw a labor board settlement. They at least were forced back to the table. Oh, I see some other things here. Okay, I missed these. Joanne Beggs is saying there must be no place for for-profit in care. We have seen how destructive profit over people is on all levels for all involved, but the profiteers. Jules Tupka wrote, the Ontario Health Coalition and the Advocacy Centre for the Elderly have filed a charter challenge to Bill 7, which forces seniors out of our hospitals into long-term care homes, not of their choosing. The OHC has also filed an application for a judicial review on the renewal of the license for Orchard Villa, long-term care home in Pickering. Orchard Villa had the worst record of deaths from COVID. It's one of the homes that the military had to go into. And then Sal Amenta, seniors and people with disabilities who are evicted cannot find accessible housing. So we are winding up in long-term care, yes, or seeking medical assistance in dying. This is unconscionable and intolerable. We need accessible as well as affordable housing, and neither is available. Wayne, you had your signal that you wanted to speak.
Yeah, I got a couple things. Chartwell is probably a good example of why we need to make sure that it's publicly funded, publicly delivered. They're a company that only cares about profit. We know during COVID, and again, I think my stats are correct, they had 4.6 deaths per 100 beds in Chartwell. And again, I can't emphasize enough that that's our moms or dads or aunts or uncles or grandparents. They only care about profit. We've seen this on what they're doing when they're evicting people that are 103 years old. Some have been there for 24 years. So we know what a bad company Chartwell is. Chris was right on the money when he said Chartwell has received millions of dollars of taxpayers funded money to not only upgrade their places, but also build their places, and have received long-term deals. What I'd like to ask Marta, I hopefully I got her name right, Marta.
Yes.
She talked about seniors and how they're treated. She talked a number of times about how they built our province, how they built our country, how they should be respected. And the Conservative government was very clear during the arguments that we put forward against Bill 7. As those that may or may not know that are on this call, our party voted against Bill 7. We raised a number of questions around Bill 7. But the Conservative government called seniors bed blockers. I don't know if anybody heard that phrase, but that's what the Conservative government called them, bed blockers. So I'm wondering, has Marta and her organization had reached out and talked about anything around Bill 7 from anybody complaining that they were forced to go to homes outside their area, whether it be in the north? I know the north had, I think it was 150 kilometers away. I think in Southern Ontario, it was 100 kilometers away. Has Marta had any conversation around that? And I'm going to close by saying very clearly is that I've been the long-term care minister, or critic, I guess. I'm not the minister yet, but that's after the next election. For five and a half years, 6 years. And during that time, I've had 5 different ministers from the government.
Yep.
So that just shows you how much they care about seniors in Ontario, because they don't care. And but I would like to see if she's had anything around Bill 7 at all.
We put out a formal statement.
That is abuse, by the way.
Yeah.
Sorry?
That is abuse.
That is of use. Okay, so I mentioned, before COVID, 250 cases that we would help navigate. We're doing 2,000 now, and I have reduced staff complement. Several of those calls when Bill 7 went through was concern about what the impact would be to an older adult, when particularly in congregate settings, family members are the ones that come and are the caregivers. They help with the feeding, they help with the bed changing. They're doing a lot of the work where there is a shortfall in staff in any one of these homes. If you relocate somebody beyond that 150 kilometer radius, how is the other likely the spouse of the individual that is also an older adult? And I say older adult because we are talking about seniors. But if you move that far away and this person no longer drives, who's going to take care of that spouse living now farther than 150 kilometers? There is no transportation. We all know what the rural challenges around bus systems or any sort of other transit. So it did have a huge impact. And a lot of individuals were basically bullied into leaving because they were now facing a $400 per day charge if they didn't leave. So how is that fair? And how are we marginalizing the individual that's actually moving away from community, away from family members, away from the support mechanism that they know? It's very similar to what's happening here in Mississauga. People are now having to relocate outside of community that they've known for 10, 15, 20 years. How is that helpful to the well-being of the older adult? And these are the consequences that people don't think about. If we're talking about dollars and cents, but these are human lives. They're not numbers, they're people. If I may offer one more story, and I don't want to monopolize the time. Elder abuse is systemic. It is pan-Canadian, but not only. It is a global issue. And how we address this as a society is extremely important. If COVID has taught us anything, that the things that we knew about previously from SARS, about PPEs, everything else, those recommendations just can't reside in a report and sit on someone's shelf. They have to be enacted, they have to be implemented, and they have to be supported and properly resourced. I had the privilege of speaking at the United Nations last year and this year again, where we are advocating as the Canadian Coalition Against Ageism for a UN convention around the rights of older adults. We have one for women, we have one for children, we have one for Indigenous populations, we have for disabled community as well. Why not, for the fastest growing demographic, is there not a convention that would protect the rights of older persons? So it's not a geographic issue so much as it's a societal one. And we as Canadians, I think, have an obligation to encourage all levels of government to advocate for this convention to become a thing, a real thing, because then that will be a legally binding instrument that will help other jurisdictions enforce this and protect the rights of older adults. Right now, criminal codes only cover to a point. Okay. And police officers, again, they can only do so much. Some of them are trained, some of them could use a bit more training. It is across all sectors. There are people at different levels of expertise, and they bring their best to the door.
Thank you, Marta. And I'm just going to beg or suggest that we go a little bit past 8 o'clock since we started so late. Marta, I know you might have to leave for something else. I just wanted to really spend a little, so suggestions have been made. We've heard a number of suggestions about things that could be done. Definitely taking the profit out of long-term care. We know that Mike Harris personally profited by about 7 million from Chartwell, from changing the rules when he was in office. And we're seeing that happening now with healthcare in general. We know that members of the Conservative government are supporting these things, and I don't think we'll be surprised later to find out who are shareholders. Can I ask whether if there's any media here, if there are any questions? Okay, so occasionally, so that things are coming through on the chats. If I don't hear anything, I am going to move on a little bit. So definitely we've talked about the problems with for-profit long-term care. Also, the need for equity in pay for the people who are actually providing care. There's a huge difference in pay for people who work in hospitals. The next level is long-term care, and the next level is home care. And if we need those workers also need to have stable, well-paid jobs with benefits. They need to be able to have full-time work at a single institution, if at all possible, or one or two. They aren't paid for their travel time. It's really quite not surprising that things are so uneven in terms of the care that people are receiving and the problems with filling those positions. Wayne talked about family caregiver, financial supports for family caregivers. Also, some things that are happening in other places, other parts of the world, is no longer having these large long-term care facilities that can function like warehouses, but having much smaller buildings, 15 to 25 people, maybe as many as 40, I don't know. But, when you have perhaps have a nurse living there, and those places are inside neighborhoods. Also, part of the NDP policy is to have low-cost financing, so that community organizations, not-for-profit organizations, can actually build the places that they would like to see. And I can give you 4 examples from Thunder Bay. There's one place called Suomikoti. It's run by volunteers. They built a 60 apartment complex 30 years ago for seniors. It's been very well maintained. They've been trying to build a second complex. They can't get affordable financing to do it, so they've put it on the shelf. There we have two co-ops in the city, and one of them, I've spoken to seniors there, they would like to have an apartment complex built close to that existing co-op so that they can downsize from the townhouses that they have right now, but still be part of that community. They don't want to leave the community. They haven't got funding. Again, the challenge of getting affordable funding to make these things happen is a big issue. And also the Francophone community here that again is tremendous volunteers, have got a beautiful French meeting place here. Well, they would also like to get a building, a seniors building. And we'll continue to look for funding. So I think it means a lot that our party is looking at low cost loans so that it's actually possible to be building not-for-profit. This Suomi Koti has paid off the mortgage from their first building, which is amazing. So it's been 30 years. And the same thing with the French thing, they've got fantastic credit ratings. It's too costly. Are there any federal programs that can help? I see a question here. Yes and no. What's it called? The Housing Accelerator Grant from the feds. Thunder Bay asked for 42 million. They got 20 million. Wayne has to go. Oh, and he's got his hand up. Is Wayne there? Anyway, I'll just finish my thought on this. The city got half of what they asked for and then offered some to Suomi Koti, but it's too little too late. Because the city put timelines on it, which meant that they have to redo their plans, redo their financial statements, and that's going to cost them another $5,000. And they don't have a guarantee of actually getting more than a little bit of funding from the city, so they still can't do it. Wayne, you wanted to say something? Oh, he's gone off. May have gone offline, so I may have missed that. The other thing that the NDP wants to do is establish a new public agency called Homes Ontario to finance new affordable and non-market housing, operate these homes through public non-profit housing providers and protecting them from land speculation. So in other words, they're separate, like the co-ops that we have here in Thunder Bay, they're separate from the larger market. And so their rents are based on the actual cost and a little bit more of running the facility. We bring in rent control. And I don't want to go too far down that path, but that's a piece of it, isn't it? Because that's part of the motivation for Chartwell to get rid of Heritage Glen, is that there are people there who have had the benefit of rent control, which prevents Chartwell from maximizing its profits. Therefore, they got rid of everybody so that the new company could come in and start from scratch and maximize their profits without any prohibitions, inhibitions at all. So anybody else want to pipe up with suggestions? Chris, yes, Chris, and then Maria.
I'm gonna say something that's a bit off script. I've been in the legislature for 6 years, and the thing that has shocked me most is that almost every decision that the legislature makes is a life and death decision. The decision to convert our public not-for-profit long-term care homes to private for-profit long-term care homes has killed thousands of seniors, you know? And these corporations, their bottom line is the bottom line. And so I used to teach a course at York University on the history and economics of Ontario. And at one point in the course, we make a list of all the services and all the, companies that you have in the province: education, healthcare, cars, houses, all these things. And we divide them like Is that a public service, a private service, or is it something in the middle? And there are certain services that belong in the public sector. Education, healthcare, seniors care belong in the public sector because the needs of our seniors, the needs of our children and the needs of people who are ill, that's got to come first. Whenever you let profit enter into it, then the care becomes secondary to the profit. And what we've seen at Heritage Glen is just a glaring example. The person who actually signed the eviction notice for the 103-year-old senior, I mean, really, like, where is your moral compass? Like, how do you possibly do that? Like, if you're sitting at the board meeting and you're raising your hand, you're saying, yeah, we're going to evict all these people because we can make, as a real estate investment trust, we can make a lot of money, you know, selling this property and evicting all these seniors, and then Minto will take it over and they'll make millions of dollars. I mean, it's just wrong. But it's also wrong that government members stood up and voted in favor of privatizing these services. And when they do, they should recognize that they are costing people's lives. Anyways, and it's that serious. But we know the solution. We just got to get it back within the public sector so that the things that are happening, you know, in the cases that Marta and Maria described and that happened at Heritage Glen, that those never happen again. We can create a province where care comes first in those industries where care, you know, should come first. You know, if car industries and things like that, you want to buy a fancy car, that's private profit. That's, you know, something separate. If you're looking after seniors, the care for seniors has to come first and foremost. Anyways, I just needed to vent.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, and I will say also for the seniors, for the people who spoke up today, thank you so much for being here. And, you know, for those who've lost loved ones, I'm really, really sorry. And we will continue to fight so this doesn't happen to other families.
Thank you, Chris. We're sort of moving into the wrap-up stage, and Maria, I think you had your hand up.
There was something that dawned on or came, it's an idea, it's an out there idea. Came about in my head back with Bill 7, but I also think it works with this situation. Retirement homes have about a 19% vacancy rate, if not more. They're begging for people to go in. Why can't we, government, turn around and say, instead of Bill 7, which says 100 kilometers, 150, if there's a nearby retirement home, we put the senior in there. They can't afford the amount, of course not, that the seniors pay in there. But why can't they pay what they pay at the long-term care, their accommodation fee? The government gives to that retirement home the amount that that person would get for care. And that senior gets to move into the same area, not 100, 150 kilometers like Bill 7, or in the case of the seniors now who don't know where to go, keep the amount the same and put them in these vacancy-rich seniors retirement homes. Temporary solution, yes. Does it work? Yes. The 103-year-old isn't going to live to 110, so the seniors' home shouldn't be panicking, or any of the other homes that, for the Bill 7 situation. But what I'm thinking with the Bill 7 situation is it might also force the government to say, geez, we're giving our money to retirement homes, but we need to, because we have to put these seniors somewhere, might get them to snap to doing something else more permanent and better. But we do have within the community, without going hundreds of kilometers, because yes, I can't remember who raised it. Was it Chris, you or somebody said about the caregivers? We are the ones that are providing caregiving in these homes. You put our seniors 150 or 100 kilometers away. We can't do what these homes need us to do, want us to do, and barely run efficiently with us doing it, let alone without us. It's one of those out there ideas, but I really think it can be worked. It's just the government has to say, yeah, okay, we'll give you that funding that we give these LTC homes. The senior still pays their amount. Maybe they have to give a little bit more to the retirement home because of their amounts. But with vacancy rates the way they are, I'm sure the retirement homes will go, oh, bring us the money, even if it's a smaller amount. Just a thought and an idea.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maria. I think that's a very interesting idea worth trying. Karen, you have your hand up.
I was just thinking with Chartwell, they pretty much emptied the building before they evicted. So it was at maybe max 60%. So there's two large buildings. So basically one is empty. There's 28,000 seniors or for affordable housing on the list in the region of Peel. Is there no like oversight on that? Like if there was an oversight, um, they wouldn't be allowed to let it, they emptied it out on purpose because they were selling it. Like just to, along with the lines of the empty spaces, is making sure that those spaces are filled.
Mhm. Mhm. That is, that's a very good point too. And you'll find that, affordable housing is generally run by local, in Thunder Bay, it's called the Thunder Bay and District Social Services something board. And so they get the money to pay for the building of affordable housing. It may be different in different communities. Actually, now that I say it, I think I remember seeing that those DSABs are actually a northern phenomena, and it might be quite different in terms of who is overseeing, if anyone, in Mississauga, for example. Did I take up your comment the way you meant it, Karen, or did I go off track there?
No, I think you got it.
Okay. Okay, Stacy.
Ideas, or are we closing up or what?
Yeah, we're kind of moving towards summing up.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm so appreciative and Maria and Marta, you really had such amazing information to share and really kind of opened my eyes to even a bigger picture of what's going on. We're in a critical situation now. And I appreciate, Lise, that you brought up that, or someone did, that this is global. I think it was Marta, you talked about this being a global issue. We need to do better. And I think there's so many opportunities just even for caring and concern, and offering empathy and understanding, as opposed to kind of casting them aside. And it does become an issue of housing, of affordability. I think there should be opportunities for them, lower financing, the home sharing, Marta, I know is it's starting to become quite a big thing, because people just don't have the affordability to pay for some of these now private for-profit seniors residences. But they do want the companionship. They do want that community feeling. I know, Sweden and the Netherlands, and they create these wonderful communities. And, there's a post office, there's a coffee shop, there's, but it's for seniors living in a house. And there's a nurse in there. And so they are taken care of, but they're also given dignity to live out their golden years. And I think that's where we're just kind of missing the point here. Canada was great for a lot of years, and I think that we've just become it is for profit. It is for who's the highest bidder, who has the most money. I don't know. My husband always talks about the fact that there are so many schools that are abandoned and aren't being used anymore. And, what are they doing? They're sitting empty. Is there a possibility to look at, refurbishing them, and they have the facilities of, of washrooms and all of those things. Is there possibility? I think there's lots of options there, but people don't want, to put that effort in. But I think that there are opportunities.
Thank you, Stacy. Marta, you've got your hand up.
I just want to add a quick thing. So yes, there are school buildings that are sitting vacant, and the cost to refurbish this is not as prohibitive as everyone would lead you to believe. Similarly, the downtown cores and major urban centers are suffering from, let's see, everybody's working from home right now. There are office towers with umpteen floors that could be repurposed, whether for a single older adult, for a family with 1 or 2 young children. The facilities like shared kitchens, shared bathrooms, all these things are physically possible. There just has to be the will to change what we know now.
Thank you.
That real estate is sitting empty, and I don't know, Minto is one of the owners. So, there are possibilities to repurpose things that we already have, and we don't need to be spending gazillions of dollars building new buildings and incurring all kinds of costs. The other piece I want to add, and this is, but affordable housing, when it's being built, developers, we full well know that they would rather pay the fine of not complying with the number of affordable units than to just, pay the fine, but sell it at a huge profit. And there's a glut right now in condo market that's indicative of where we're going. And my final parting word is, it's not until it happens to us individually do we truly appreciate what someone has gone through or what is going through. And does it have to come to that? We're Canadians. We pride ourselves on being global leaders in so many ways. Maybe our moral compass needs to be strengthened.
Thank you, Marta, very much. Before I close, I just want to give Jeff and Sinead a chance to add any thoughts.
Okay, I'll go first if that's okay, Sinead.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
for sure.
okay, thank you. So Marta, that your last point was well said. You know what? That unfortunately something has to happen for shit to happen, right? And as bad as it sounds, but maybe something needs to happen to our MPP in order for shit to happen, right? It's sorry, may sound cold, or sorry, it does sound cold, but maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what happened. That's what has to happen for people to care. And that's it. Thank you, everybody, for scheduling this meeting and doing what you do. And I look forward to the upcoming challenges and working through it.
Thank you, Jeff. Sinead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Whew, I never know if I'm on mute or not. You know what? I just want to again say that I really appreciate everyone coming together. I'm hopeful that there will be a change. I feel like it's an unfortunate thing that so many people that were at Heritage Glen had to leave the immediate area. I feel at this point for us personally, I feel like, moving together and kind of, me and the family being there to be able to support my mom at this particular moment after losing my dad, and us just all kind of going together and leaving Mississauga might just be a blessing in disguise, really. It's just, I think, left a really bad taste in my mouth and a lot of others. And just the way that this whole thing went down. And I agree, we've talked about it, how, Chartwell knew well in advance of this notice that this was going to happen. And, I've said it many times, Chartwell has every right to sell a property that they own. No one can stop them from doing that. It is the way that this was done. It was just so unethical. So again, I really appreciate you guys, and I really hope that a change will come. Heritage Glen is kind of where it is right now, but for future, I don't want to ever see somebody at 103 years old having to deal with trying to relocate. Thank you.
Thanks, Sinead. So I really want to thank everybody for what you've shared today, for coming together for this event. I know I learned more than I knew. And that sense of urgency, I think, is there. I mean, we all have to keep leading our lives as best as we can, but you know, we are all in different positions, able to advocate from our different positions, and certainly Chris and Wayne and I as MPPs have a role to play in the legislature to push for the respect, the dignity, the opportunities, the changes in attitudes, the not just protection, but the respect that needs to be there for people, for older adults, for our parents, for ourselves as we come into that age. Now I see two people with raised hands. Karen, go for it. Can't hear you.
You're-
I was just kind of wondering what your guys' thoughts are. When would an election be called? Because, like, I love tweeting, but it's a lot.
Yes, yes.
Like, I'm hoping the sooner the better. And like, do you really think that we can make a difference?
I think we have to. I think that you mean as individuals, as voters, if that's where the angle that you're coming from, there's a lot of cynicism out there. A lot of people don't vote. I also think a lot of people vote on the basis of very, very little information. I keep hearing people I consider to be intelligent say that they're going to vote for Poilievre. And I think, what have you been listening to? What have you been thinking about? Because if you look at all, you would see that things will get even worse. So it's going to come down to every single one of us having those conversations with our friends, and sometimes with our families, even if it might not be comfortable. And also, you know, get involved in campaigns, because, you know, running for office is tough. It takes a huge amount of energy. It takes a lot of money. We all have to get out there and be fundraising. It's not a thing I'm particularly good with. But it all has to be done. And if we can mobilize enough people, then we can make a difference at the ballot box. We know that the Ford government is awash in money. So we have to make a difference in terms of the numbers. Chris, you're on mute.
Hey, just final request. I'd like to get a screenshot. I don't know if Wayne's still here. Sinead, if you could turn your camera back on. Everybody put on your best smile. And oh, Karen, if you could lower your hand there. Okay, we all here? Got it?
Just a sec, let Karen figure out how to lower her hand.
Sure. I think if you're the
Can I?
there we go. There you
There we
go. Okay. We're good. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. One more. Okay, that's great. Thanks, folks. Liz,
Thanks.
thank you so much for organizing, and Paul behind the scenes here. And thank you all for being here and for your continued advocacy. This is not the end. This is just the beginning of a big, big fight.
Thanks. I think that's a good
Thank
moment
you.
to sign off. Thanks, everybody. And thanks also Dawson, who's been in the background as well.
Thank you.
Good night. Thanks for
Thank
everyone
you.
who
Good night,
logged in and
everyone.
who's been listening.
Good night, guys. Thank you.
Good night, and thank you very,
Allison,
very
if you're
much,
still
everyone,
there.
especially Lise.
Ciao.
Thank you,
Bye.
Liz.
Good night.